Welcome to a special in-person edition of Chris Strub Unmuted. I'm Chris Strub, and today we're talking with my friend Kevin Jones about fatherhood here in Greenville, South Carolina.
We never stop being parents, but we do have to stop parenting.
This is Chris Strub Unmuted, a show designed for open dialogue, honest reflection, and uncensored truths about the lives that we lead. Today's episode is my friend Kevin's premiere, his first time ever on a podcast. Kevin Jones from First Reliance Bank, and more importantly, a dad here continuing our June 2026 season 6 drop about fathers that I look up to. Kevin Jones, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris.
Welcome to my home.
Thank you.
Forgive me in advance if I get emotional during this conversation, because having you here in person means a lot to me. You have been an instrumental human being in the course of my life and maturation process, not just in the last 15, 16 months since I purchased the house, but it dates back even further than that when I started thinking about buying a home here in Greenville. And I cannot give a more sincere or deeper endorsement of who you are, both as a businessman for helping me find the perfect home here in Greenville, but also as a human being. And so this month on the show, again, your first podcast interview ever, so we're gonna have fun with it here at in person. We are gonna get into your life as a father as well, and I've been blessed. I haven't met your daughter, but I have, of course, met your wife, your better half, and just an absolute honor to have one of my favorite human beings here to join me for an in-person edition of Chris Strub Unmuted. So Kevin, welcome to the show, and welcome to my home.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I can't tell you how much it means for me to be here. And really it was a blessing for me to be a part of this journey with you, and just to see you take each step as they came, and they were monumental steps where you just had to kind of hit a roadblock and reconfigure things, and I was just always amazed at your resilience and your ability to do that. And as you know, we had roadblocks right up until the very end, but we just kind of stuck through it. And,
just when you think
to have it happen.
Just when you think you're through all of the roadblocks, another roadblock shows up. So
that's right. It's a little bit of what life is like, isn't it?
It is, I suppose. And I suppose it's also what fatherhood has been like, right?
So true.
So
very much so.
Let's cover the house stuff first, and then we'll get into the dad stuff, right? So if you go back and you listen to my episode in season 1 about resiliency, I talked about how last spring I lost my job. And one of the most difficult conversations that I had, of course, were with, first and foremost, both of my parents. But that afternoon, I was let go mid-morning, late morning. And that afternoon, I had to come into your office. And now the tables are turned. Now you're in my office here, Kev.
That's right.
But I had to tell you that I lost my job, and thus my home was, the closing of my home was in jeopardy. And this is something that every potential homeowner is petrified of.
Right.
It's one of the worst things that can happen to a buyer.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people that could be listening to this who would immediately think, that's it, it's over, I'm staying in my apartment, I'm lucky to have an apartment, and I love the apartment that I lived in. But when I sat down with Kevin Jones, I said, we're making it happen. And Kevin said, let's do it. Let's do it. And here we are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that is not something that everyone in your position, that is not a level of confidence or a level of assurance that everyone in your position could offer. What was that like? And you've been through this, so give me a little bit of your background to lead into this answer. How long have you been in this industry? And so you've had probably hundreds of types of, if not thousands of these conversations over the years. Is that right?
For sure. Yeah. Well, I started my career, I'm old, I'm 63, so I started my career, 40 years ago in banking, and have really been doing financing all that time. And so,
I started my career 40 years ago in my mother's womb.
I think no, that's what it is.
So
But
40
anyway,
years.
so
Yeah.
40 years of just doing financing, and then 26 years of just doing mortgages. And so, when you said, I've lost my job, but we're going to make this happen, that's all I needed to say, well, we're going to keep this thing pending, because all we needed was a new job. That's it. A new job, and this thing was happening. I knew it was happening.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of you finding that job. And again, you and I had a relationship. Like I've known you for over multiple years. And so when you said, when you said we're gonna make this happen, I was like, I bet you he will. And sure enough, you did. Like you just got to work looking for a job. And I think that made the difference. Like I would have known that day if you said, I'm giving up. To your point, I want to cancel the contract. I'm gonna stay in my apartment. I mean, I would have done my best to say, hey, why don't we keep things going and let's just see. But the fact that you were the one that said, no, I'm going to keep things going, was like, I'm in it all the way. What's the worst that can happen? Is that we get to the end and we say, I'm sorry, we don't know, So then there was this challenge of how much do we communicate, how much we don't, like what do we need to keep close to our chest, what do we need to make sure we're not disadvantaging the other parties. Yeah. And so that was a struggle, right? We had to kind of work through that and think through that a little bit. But, again, it was part of the process.
And I joke with Kevin all the time. I might become a father someday, but I might owe my firstborn child to Mr. and Mrs. Jones here based on the numbers that we see here. There's a lot of decimal points, a lot of interest rates, a lot of those deep conversations. I mean, this is as big an investment as you'll ever make in your life. And so when you make that emotional investment as well as that financial investment, you need to work with someone that you really trust. To me, that's been Kevin Jones. Mm-hmm. And that's been Kevin for 5+ years, right? And now for the next 28 years, I owe you a little bit more money before we pay this thing off. But
that's right. And you get to keep your kids. So
I get to keep the kids too.
I've had kids.
Keep and pay for the kids. So, and I've been blessed to meet your wife as well. It's nice to know that Kevin is not coming to my house to break my leg, right? So, I might have been a 1950s conversation, but, Kevin came here on my birthday last August and with your wife and brought me a birthday cake, and I will remember that for the rest of my life. That was really special, and just the human-to-human connection that you make as a businessman, not just with me, I'm sure, but with all of your clients and customers. We've had some really deep, difficult conversations, because this is not easy, man. It's not easy at all. So you need to have a partner, multiple partners in the process. Tony Leopard has been absolutely incredible for me also.
She was the other leg of the stool that we had to have in the mix.
So, we put all that together. We had a great closing team and everything, but you have just been one of my rocks, man. So when I thought about building this season of Chris Strub Unmuted around talking to dads, the name Kevin Jones immediately comes to mind. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you to pivot into this conversation about being a dad.
Sure.
Let's start at the beginning. When did you and Joy know that you wanted to become parents?
Yeah, well, I think it was just always part of who we were, right? We just wanted to be parents. Yeah. And then when we got married, well, that was part of it. We got married 39 years ago. Okay. So in 1987, thanks. Yep. But we did want to kind of just spend time together for a couple of years and try to get our relationship a little more solidified. Yeah. So obviously you're not always in control of things, but we did, fortunately we had about 3 years where we just didn't have any kids. And then our first daughter was born, and 2 years later our second daughter was born, and then 5 years later our son was born. So we've got 3 kids, they're all adults now. 2 of them are married, 2 are not, 1 is not. So we're very, very blessed and very, very thankful. And it's interesting, now to look back, I would not change anything. I would change things I've done, but I would not change having children. And so let me just say this. There was a thought that I think both my wife and I had initially, like, should we even have kids? That thought, I've heard people say that. Should we have kids? This world is a difficult place. Do I want to necessarily bring children into this world? And my answer would be, yes, you do. If you can have children, you want to have them. For 2 reasons. One, you have the ability to form the next generation. And that's a huge privilege. And for you to say, I don't want to be a part of that, I think is a miss. And then second of all, now especially as we're getting older, and my dad just turned 90, he is
Wow.
very dependent on my brother and myself. And we are so thankful to be able to provide for him and care for him. And I see that as a privilege, and I'm grateful for our adult children now and the relationship that we have, and looking forward to the fact that there's probably one day where I'm going to need to rely on them. And I have that. I have an uncle that never had children, and his life is very different right now, and he's in his late 80s, and so it's different, and I would not want that.
Yeah. What's your dad's name?
Warren.
Warren.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that you learned from Warren that you still carry with you to this day?
That's a great thing. He is one of the hardest working men I know. Yeah, and from day one, he was. And he was very, very resourceful. It didn't matter where we were or what we did, he would find work. My mom or my brother and I never worried about, hey, well, we're going to have a roof over our head. So that's one thing I learned from him. Thank you for him.
And I'm sure your kids have learned from Warren as well.
Yeah, I think
having
so.
that relationship means a lot too. You talk about the stool with Kevin and Tony, but the family stool is different too. You know, that there's those bonds over multiple generations that I'm sure have meant a lot to your kids also.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so talk about then, what is something, you know, you mentioned your kids are getting older now as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin and Joy, empty nesters,
Right.
you know, the dreaded phrase. What is something that you've learned from them as a dad?
Being empty nesters, you mean as kids?
Yeah. Well, at any age.
Yeah. Well, I would say.
Or how has being a dad, what have you learned from them that's made you better at your job, at what you do as a broker?
Sure. I think having children teaches you patience in a way that you have no other way to learn it. Just because when you have kids, there are challenging things that occur while you're raising them, but there's no way out. Like, no one's giving you a bye. And so when things get really, really hard, you have to take a step back and say, okay, I've got to figure out how to make this thing happen, because you're not going to abandon them, obviously, but you know you've got to do some things to help shape them and shape their lives. And so I think there's this level of calm, level of maturity that you just grasp in a unique way when you have children. I'll use this parallel. I always said to my kids, when they started entering college, I was excited to see how they were going to mature in their college years, because once they get to college, they're outside of the house, they're outside of mom and dad's constant eye and observation, and there's this level of maturity that kicks in, because now all of a sudden they have to go to the store and buy their toothpaste, and they've got to manage some money a little bit, and they've got to manage their school bills, you know, and so that weight, carrying that weight, just matures them in a unique way. Mom and dad could never mature them that way, and so parenting matures us and gives us some skill sets that when you don't have them, you just don't know because you're not doing it.
As a dad, you've gone through basically the full cycle now of adolescence and all of this 3 times. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite phase? Like, you have a favorite age of when the kids got there, and then by the 3rd kid, you're like, oh, there's going to be 12, 13, 14, this is the fun part, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was never a fan of the baby phase. Like, my wife loved that. Gosh, she would just, you know, the smaller they were, the more she loved that. But I really started enjoying them when they were like 2 and young, and they could react and have fun, and you know, I could do some.
Yeah, I had another guest this season say the same thing. His kids are heading out to college now. He's about to become an empty nester. Okay. He said the same. Dan said the same thing, which is, you know, the wife, the mom tends to really like that, you know, the cradle and really being there and supporting the baby, whereas once the kids start to get older, now they can do stuff with dad, you know, and get out and do activities, throw the ball around, you know, go watch sports and stuff like that.
Yeah, so for sure, I enjoyed that. But I think every phase had its really fun and unique things. When they're in elementary school, you know, they really don't have a care in the world, and so they're just a little bit more enjoyable from that perspective. I think once they hit middle school and high school, that's when they start running into problems. So now you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with, you know, just hormonal changes, all kinds of things. And so you're navigating that. It just becomes a little bit more challenging, but they're independent. And you see them take some independence. Like, our kids started working when they were 16, when they started driving, like all of that, even though sometimes it was nerve-wracking, it was still really exciting to see them accomplish some things.
Is it still nerve-wracking to go for a drive with the kids?
No, actually, I love it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
you've earned it.
I don't have to drive. I don't have to think. I can do some other things. I love it when they drive. Yeah.
Have you helped the kids? Are all three of your kids, are they homeowners too?
They are. All three of them own their own home. Yeah, which I'm really thankful for. Yeah, and I've been able to be a part of that process for each of them. So that's been a huge.
I bet they were shopping around for a broker.
No, that's right.
That was one decision that was made
Yeah.
for them. I mean, talk about. Let's pivot back to work here. Talk about the importance of home ownership. You and I talked about this many, many times over the last 5 years. That this investment, for example, that I've made, and I think this season, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing different parts of my home, which is really cool to show off. But even no matter what size your house is, or if you have a podcast or not, like, it feels like owning a home is like one of the most important decisions that you'll ever make in your life.
Yeah, I think so. And statistically, it's proven it's one of the biggest wealth builders in your life. So just to give you an example, my wife and I purchased our home our second home 25 years ago, and we owned it for 20 years. That house appreciated over 200%.
Yeah, that's a good level of appreciation.
Yeah, exactly. Now interestingly, that happened over a 20-year period of time. It's a long time, but it is the significant builder of wealth. And then if you are successful in paying off your mortgage, that just builds even more wealth. So, I mean, this combination of owning a home and then doing some long-term investing in the stock market, I think is just a great combination, and you're diversified, which any financial planner out there would say.
And your wonderful wife is in a similar field, a different field, but what does Joy do for work?
Yeah, now Joy, she was in real estate, actually. She did that for a little bit, and now she works at our local hospital.
Gotcha.
In their visitor services area, which actually is really up her, well, it's her bailiwick, because she loves meeting people, and she's a social worker. Her education's in social work, and so she works in the ICU, surgery, so people that are having a tough day lots of times, and really tough depending on the severity of family members' illness. So anyway, she supports them and helps the medical staff, like, when can family be there, when do family need to be pulled away so that the medical team can help them.
I'm sure I've asked you this, I don't remember the answer, so forgive me. Are you guys originally from the Greenville area?
We're not, no. So I'm originally from New Jersey, and then my wife's from Boston.
If you have not watched or listened to previous episodes of the show, I did an episode in season 1 about life in Greenville, South Carolina. One of the big theme of that episode, Kev, was, Chris, I'm from Long Island, and my family's from Long Island. What drives someone to live in Greenville, South Carolina? My answer has always been the people. And when I say that out loud to anyone, someone asks, why do I live in Greenville, South Carolina? I mean, maybe the single biggest reason, for multiple logic lines here, is Kevin Jones, right? Like, you are both the human being who literally facilitated and typed out the numbers and helped me secure this loan to get in the house for the next 29 years, not that I'm counting. But the goodness of people here in Greenville just is overwhelming to me. And it's why when you have an opportunity as a young person, youngish person, I'm not as young as I used to be, right? When you have that decision to make as to where you want to plant roots and where you want to live your life, it's not just, there's a good bank on the corner here, and I will make sure to give a full plug with a phone number and address to where you can reach Kevin by the end of the episode, right down by my neighborhood Publix. But it's the goodness in the hearts of people. Mm-hmm. Talk about what drew you guys to Greenville, South Carolina in the first place, and what has kept you here?
Yeah.
What is it about Greenville that you like about this area?
Sure, yeah. We, interestingly, I think we came here more by default than by choice. It ended up being our choice, but
they kick you out of Jersey.
Yeah, kind of.
We've all been there.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we lived a mile from my folks, and our kids were little. So our oldest they were like 7, 5, and 1, and so. But my mom passed away, sadly, young, and so that really changed the dynamic of our family. And at the same time, I was working for a bank, and the gentleman I worked for moved to Charlotte, and he had responsibility for the bank area in Greenville. And I actually went to college here in Greenville. But ironically, Greenville was not, back then Greenville was not what it is today.
Yeah.
And so by the time I graduated, I was like, I want out of Dodge. I wanted to leave Greenville. And actually, New Jersey was a lot more attractive to me then. But after living there for 15 years, and our family dynamics had changed, and the bank said, would you consider moving to South Carolina? That was when the prospect came. And so at first I was a little bit resistant to it, but the bank's like, well, how about if we fly you down, you can kind of take a look at the area and see what you think. So I was familiar with it, but it had dramatically changed in the 10 years since I had been here. And so by the time we were done with that interview, I was like, okay, we want to move. And now, to your point, I would totally agree with you. The area itself is beautiful. You have a great combination of the mountains, but you're close enough to the ocean, and the pace of life is much slower.
It really is.
Than it is in New Jersey. And there are things that we definitely miss about New Jersey, but when we go back to visit it, people just have a heaviness on them. But I think part of the heaviness is just because it's very urban, and it's just a little more tough life. You know, you're just fighting to get through the day sometimes in ways that we don't have to worry about here. And so I think, to your point, it puts people at ease a little bit more. Of course, their southern culture is different, very different, and so that just brings a piece of enjoyment.
The kids like it here too?
They do, they love it. And they all live here, so which we're really thankful for.
Yeah, I mean, that must be nice.
For sure.
To stay in touch with the kids,
yes,
you know, as they're building their own lives.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How have you learned to give them more space, or have you learned to enjoy giving them more space as they've gotten older and older and sort of making their own decisions? Like, you know, I just talked to Max, his daughter is 16 months. She's not making too many of her own decisions yet.
Right.
But as an empty nester, is that process difficult to kind of let them off on their own? I mean, even more so after college and everything?
Yeah. Boy, that's a great question. So a couple things come to mind. One is that we never stop being parents, but we do have to stop parenting. So we're parents, there's always this deep relationship that our kids have with us that's super important, and their relationship with me is super important. But I'm no longer parenting them. I'm not correcting them. I'm not shaming them, right, or guilting them into anything. I'm a friend, but I'm a dad.
Has that been a maturation process? You know, from one kid to the next, kind
yes,
of.
and I think each one of them are different. The other thing I think for me is that I feel like pursuing the kids is on me. Like, I love it when they pursue me, and that's a great thing. But it's not my expectation. My expectation is that I need to be pursuing them, so that my wife and I are spending specific time with them. And I think the other thing we've learned is that we need to spend time together as a family, but then there's also real benefit in spending time with them individually, because our relationships are a little bit different. Not good, not bad, either way. They're just a little bit different because there's 3 different personalities. And so we have a little bit of a different relationship with each of them. So and their spouses now, that brings a different dynamic to them. Especially the ones that are married, they are now their own family. And so we're a welcome guest into their family. And with our daughter who's single, she's creating her own life, and we're a welcome guest into her life. So someone once said, when your adult children, if you want to continue to have a relationship with your adult children, keep your welcome mat out and your mouth shut. So there are times where I think we do need to speak, right? I mean, because I love them and I care about them. And so if I see something, I'm just going to say, as I would to any friend, hey, I'm concerned about this, right? Or have you thought about this? But I'm not, I don't need to correct them anymore.
Gotcha. All right, Kev, happily married to Joy, 39 years coming up on the big anniversary next year. You're talking about the 3 kids, empty nesters now. Any grandkids in the picture?
Yeah, thanks. We actually have one on the way.
That
Little
is
girl.
unbelievable. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, thanks, and it really is unbelievable.
I am so happy for you guys.
Thank you.
So give me all the details.
Yeah.
What's the story?
Well, our daughter's been married for 5 years, and for 3 years they've actually been trying and have not been able to conceive. And so that has been, I'm going to get emotional. Yeah.
Got a bottle of water
No,
for
I'm
you?
good. I'm good. It's been a journey. It's been a journey for them. It's been a journey for us to walk through that with them. So they had a desire to be parents, and so we have a great need in this area, like there are throughout the country, for fostering and adopt. And so
Yeah.
they started going into that process.
Yeah.
And so if that was drawn out, it took over 6 months. And in January, they had just gotten approved for their first placement. And then, lo and behold, and I know this story gets told over and over again, but in February she ended up pregnant. So they surprised us with that news. And the funny thing is, when my daughter told us, she had 5 pregnancy tests with her, because she's like, when she became pregnant, she's like, I don't believe it. Like, she had to keep like confirming that no, this is true. So
And you guys got to learn this in person.
We
It wasn't
did.
a
We
FaceTime or
did.
anything, it was just
They waited till we could all be together. We were all together as a family when they told us. So yeah. it
At
was
your
super
home, at
exciting.
their home. You were
Yeah,
out,
no, it was
out to
at our
dinner
home. We
somewhere?
were actually celebrating my oldest daughter's birthday, and the very last gift she opened was a little onesie saying, "I can hardly wait to meet my aunt," or something like that.
See,
So,
I
yeah.
can't today. Today is a heavy emotional day, man.
Yeah.
So I just had this same conversation. My friend Max is a few years younger than me, and newer dad. I mentioned his daughter is 16 months, or coming up on 16 months. I don't want to age her too much, but he and his wife were able to tell their parents last year on 2 years ago on Father's Day,
Wow.
that she was pregnant. Like, imagine that surprise, like Happy Father's Day
Yeah.
and Happy Grandfather's Day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And to me, Kev, this is what life is about, right? Like, I've told this story a bunch of times too. I don't have a cool story like that about pregnancy and that stuff to tell yet, but I bought this house to not be here by myself forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's absolutely a goal of mine, and maybe that's my quiet motivation in this month's drop, is like, I look up to fathers and soon to be grandfathers. That's so amazing. I didn't know that before we sat down. So, thank you for sharing that with me, and congratulations to you and Joy and to everyone in the family. That's just like, what could be better? What could be better than that?
No,
You know what I mean?
Very excited.
Like, I cried when I go run a race, and I cried when I got the keys to this place and laid on the floor and ate pizza and stuff. But life, to me, is about life and legacy. And I've got a whole nother episode on legacy too. Like, what do you want to be remembered for? And I should just pose that question to you simply too, Kev. Is what does Kevin Jones want to be remembered for?
Boy, it's a great question. And that's one that we all ought to be thinking about. But, Chris, I would want to be remembered for, to be honest with you, the things that you described. For a guy that was a friend, somebody who cared, someone that people could trust, and that, I just, because this is personal, my faith is really important to me.
Yeah.
So someone who really believed in God, and it wasn't just what they said, but how they lived.
And it's I'm sorry, I should have brought a box of tissues over here for you, man. You want me to grab it? Let me grab one real quick.
Okay, we might both, I think we both need them, yeah.
Here I am setting up my in-person studio, and I should have brought you a tissue. I'm so sorry. Just look at the camera. I mean, this is how
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Kev,
Yeah.
a couple times over, especially the last year plus now. Life is hard, man.
Yeah.
Life is hard.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily think of your mortgage broker as that guy that you call when times are tough. And there have been multiple times over this last year when things have been really tough on me for various reasons, right? There's the weight, just the general weight of the world, in addition to the stress of being a first-time homeowner and the dollars and cents. And I just want to reassure you that what you just said is absolutely true to me. That more importantly than being that guy that I go to send my life savings to every month, like you are that dude that has been that support pillar for me here in Greenville. Really, sincerely.
I appreciate that.
And so I really wanted to make sure to get you on an episode like this to talk about this stuff and to reveal the grandparents' news. And so, Kevin, let me dive into that a little bit more. Right, as a soon-to-be grandparent now, you're going to sort of get to start thinking again about these children at a new age.
Yeah.
Right. So you gave a really eloquent answer, as always, very well-spoken gentleman, about having to let go a little bit as the kids have gotten older. But I know that you have deep thoughts about raising kids now in this newer generation, right? It's 2026. Life is a lot different than it was in the 70s and 80s. So how, if you were starting again now and raising kids 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now grandkids, what do you see that's different now than it was years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is one that I'm thinking about, especially now that we've got a baby on the way. And when our kids were little, it was the 90s, cell phones were just really becoming something, but we didn't have smartphones at all. And so our world is completely different, but parenting hasn't changed. So one of the things that I've been doing is reading a book called The Collapse of Parenting by a guy named Leonard Sachs. It was written probably 10 years ago, but he saw a trend in modern day culture where kids' anxiety levels are just starting to hit all-time highs. And parents are really becoming unsure of how to deal with this and how do we work through our kids being so anxious and fearful. And he really attributes a lot to social media and kids being given smartphones earlier than maybe they should. They have the ability then to connect with peers all the time. And so they are waking up with their peers, they're going to bed with their peers. When they're hitting difficult times in the middle of the day, they're connected to their peers. And there's more and more separation from parents. And so the idea is kids don't need to be treated as adults just yet. They need to continue to be treated as children, and that parents need to really prioritize that relationship between the kids and themselves and to limit this peer interaction. Because as our children age, they're going to make mistakes and they're not going to handle things well. And they may say some really harsh things to us as parents, like, I hate you, right? Because we're putting clamps on what they're supposed to do because we've got to put guidelines on them. When they're young, they have to. They're foolish. They don't know. They've got to learn. And that's what parents do. But as a parent, at the end of the day, that's really a maturing process and that you really are trying to provide some guidance for them. And so I think parents nowadays have sadly given their kids over to sometimes social media distraction in an effort to give them maybe some peace of mind, where that becomes really important. So I thought it was interesting that I think there's this idea that I want to be friends with my kids and I want my kids to have friends, but that's backfired a little bit in creating this whole level of angst and anxiety that's unnecessary. So I think for me, making sure that our children know we love them, that parent-child, and I'm talking about normal, healthy families, right? Because obviously there's single-family homes, or maybe where parents aren't handling things well. That's a whole different story, and these answers are not going to be helpful. But when things are working well, having parents that are giving their children appropriate responsibilities and appropriate abilities to make decisions as they age become really, really important. So when they're little, they don't get to choose what cup they drink out of and what outfits they get to wear, because they've got to learn to obey and be humble. So that would be one thing. I think the other thing is to make sure we keep our kids curious, asking questions. What can they learn? Keeping them humble, and then keeping them respectful. And respectful is more than just saying yes sir, no sir, because we live in the South.
Yeah.
It's very appropriate. So it's very easy to teach behavior, but you've got to teach attitude. Attitude is really important from a humility perspective. So anyway, those are some of the things. And so as I am anticipating becoming a grandparent, again, not that I'm going to be parenting, but I think it's just going to help me maybe be a little more attuned to what's going on.
Kevin, I'm going to give you a spoiler. We're going to wrap things up here in a minute. Kevin is one of the busiest brokers in Greenville here. You can find him at First Reliance Bank.
That's right.
The address?
It's 500 East Washington Street in Greenville, downtown Greenville.
Right downtown Greenville. I mean, it's a beautiful little spot. You can see Kevin. You can wave. I wave at you every time I get back on Lawrence Road as I'm driving back and forth to downtown. I see Kevin there, and right by your neighborhood Publix. And so, Kevin, I'm going to let you get back to work here in a minute. But before I do, I just have to reiterate one more time just my gratitude to you for everything. Over the last 5+ years, I got your name from my agent, Tony Leopard, who we both adore, and is just in her own right a wonderful human being. And
sure.
I try and use my words carefully. I think as I start to reflect on this season, and I might have 1 or 2 more episodes to record here, but one of my biggest life hacks in life has been staying close to my own parents, right? My mom and my dad, who you've met multiple times, both of them, and both have been instrumental in this process of helping me find a home and everything. But in all seriousness, one of my biggest life hacks has been identifying men like you, many of whom are fathers, who also serve a different type of fatherhood role to me. And I really look up to you, man. I really do. Just the temerity, and it would have been easy for you to just crumple up my file and throw away my phone number and stuff, like at any point over the last 5 years. I ask a lot of questions, man. You're not gonna have someone come into your office, and ask you more questions than Chris Strub does along the way. And you've been shockingly patient, just unbelievably consistent and stable, and just patient is probably the best word I can use, but just understanding and compassionate, and just even this morning, I got your text saying, I come by the house. I didn't know that you'd be able to make time for me today to come out and see the house and have a conversation like this in person. And I'm so glad that you did, because you're one of those men in my life that just mean a lot to me. Really, really.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And I think you're an amazing human being as well. And I'm grateful for your friendship. And it's been nothing but a pleasure to call you a friend over the last 5 years. And I'm thankful that, that we've gotten to know each other. So you're super gifted, super talented, and so I'm really grateful.
It's an honor to be part of this community. Like literally now, I've got a house out here in Malden. I'm
paying taxes.
I am paying my taxes. You're welcome. To the garbage truck drivers and everybody out there. And we're also Orange Theory friends. I got to wake up early to come find you and Joy here at Woodruff Road. I was there at 7:30 this morning because that 6 a.m. alarm is still a little early for me. But just getting to know you over the years, Kevin, has been a pleasure, and I cannot say thank you enough. So First Reliance Bank. This is not a sponsored episode, although you could make the case that I owe plenty of money to First Reliance over the years to come. Kevin Jones.
Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Such a pleasure to be with you today.
You're always welcome here.
Thanks. Great to meet your audience too.
Yeah, and congrats on your first podcast. It wasn't too bad.
No. Right? You made it easy.
Nice to be in the hot seat. I put you in the hot seat this time.
But it was good.
We've turned the tables after many conversations of stacks of paperwork coming in.
For sure.
Kev, it's an honor. We'll have you on again, and can't wait to see the baby pictures.
Wow, thank you.
My gosh.
You'll see them.
I bet I will.
Yeah.
Kevin Jones.
Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Chris Strub Unmuted. Support the show by clicking like and subscribe. Keep up with me on social media at Chris Strub. And remember, we are all famous to a few people. I got a new C4 fan in Kevin Jones. He took one home with him. C4 cheers. Hope you enjoyed the episode.